So with the most recent developer live stream for Diablo 4, we pretty much have all the information we're going to get for the launch of the game. So I want to re-go over every system in Diablo 4 using all the most up-to-date information to give a good overview on how every system is going to work. And a good place to start is a system that I am most excited for, which are Paragon boards. And because of that most recent developer live stream, I think we have a much better picture on how exactly the Paragon boards are going to work, including a lot of the finer details. So in Diablo 4, Paragon boards are going to be one of your main forms of character progression into the endgame, and you unlock these once you hit level 50. So you can almost think of these like the second half of your character skill trees. 1 through 50, you're progressing through your skill trees. 50 to 100, you're progressing through your Paragon boards. And Paragon boards are going to hold a lot of your overall character and build power. And going from level 50 to 100, you're going to be getting around 4 Paragon points per level, and then you're going to be able to get some additional Paragon points from the Renown system, meaning you're going to have 220 total Paragon points to use once you're maxed out at level 100 and max out all the Renown rewards that give you Paragon points. So unlock the Paragon system from Diablo 3. This is going to be a capped power system, so you're actually going to have to make choices depending on your builds, depending on what stats you want, and there are going to be quite a lot of pretty difficult choices when going through this system. So once you get to level 50, you're going to get your first Paragon board, and you don't get to choose the first board, but every single class is going to have their own unique Paragon boards, and they're all uniquely designed by developers, so you're not going to be getting random Paragon boards or random powers. And the first board you start with is going to be a little bit simpler than a lot of the other boards, but you're going to be using your Paragon points to select from a handful of different tile rarities that are going to give you different stats and effects. Now, once you progress enough through the first Paragon board, you're then going to hit a gate. Now, this gate is going to give you some additional stats, and then it's going to allow you to slot in another Paragon board on top of that gate. Now, every class is going to have a decent selection of additional Paragon boards, and all of these boards are going to be different, most of them being kind of built around a specific idea. Maybe it's fire damage for a sorcerer, bleed damage for a barbarian, or maybe shape shifting for a druid. And when selecting this new Paragon board, you can also turn it and start on any of the different sides that you want. So you'd have 4 different sides you could start from. And then after selecting that new board, you're going to use your points to progress through that board, choosing the different tiles you want, going to any of the different sides that are all going to have a gate. And then once you get to one of those gates, you'll be able to connect another Paragon board. And that's how you're going to be progressing through the entirety of the Paragon board system, using up to those 220 points. So there's going to be a ton of customization and options just by selecting different boards and by selecting which side of the board you actually want to start from. And these tiles you're selecting to progress through the Paragon boards are going to come in one of 4 different rarities: normal, magic, rare, and legendary. Normal tiles are just going to be base stat increases, so +5 to strength, intelligence, dexterity, or willpower. And those are going to be the main tiles found on Paragon boards, but even though those are kind of boring, they're going to play a pretty big role in other parts of the Paragon boards. Magic tiles are going to be found in clusters and are usually more varied stat increases. You can find +7 increase to some of the base stats, but those are more uncommon, and some of the other stats you're going to be finding are percent increase to life, percent damage increase, and then even more specialized stats such as plus increased damage to bleeding, plus increased damage to fire, or maybe just a percentage increase to all resistances. But then when getting into rare tiles is where a lot more of the interesting stats and effects come into play. And an example is one they actually showed off in that developer live stream called Hunter Killer. And this gives you an increased damage to elites and a 14% movement speed for 4 seconds after killing an elite. But then all rare tiles are also going to have a bonus effect that requires you get a certain amount of primary stat to unlock. So for this rare tile, if you get 260 dexterity, you get another 16% damage to elites. And this is where those normal tiles are going to come into play and become a lot more important, because like mentioned, every rare tile has this bonus you can get, and the bonuses are pretty big, and the bonus requirement is going to get higher as you progress through more Paragon boards. So now the actual tile selection of your boards is actually going to have an effect on how much stats you need to be getting these bonus effects. So this gives you some pretty important decisions. Do you want to get a handful of these very strong tiles early on so you can get the bonus effects? Or do you wait to get some of those later but have a harder time to get the bonus effects on those? So there's actually going to be quite a lot of options and important decisions to make as you progress into the end game and as you progress into the Paragon system. And some of these bonuses can actually require you hit a certain amount of 2 different stats. So maybe this bonus would require 200 strength and 100 willpower. Now you don't need to get these bonus effects, but it's going to be a lot of additional power to hit these certain stat thresholds to get the bonuses. And then finally, we have legendary tiles. And there's only going to be 1 legendary tile on every Paragon board after the starting Paragon board. That first board you start with does not have a legendary power on it, but every board after that, there will be 1 legendary power that's generally in the middle of the board. And another example that they showed off in this most recent live stream is Ceaseless Conduit. Crackling Energy has a 25% chance to not consume a charge when triggered. Crackling Energy's damage is increased by 2% per 20 total intelligence you have. And this person currently has a 50% bonus. So this is specifically for the sorcerer, and this legendary power is really strong. And not only does this kind of enable crackling energy builds to actually exist or be strong enough, but this one technically has infinite scaling. Now you won't be able to actually get infinite intelligence. If you had a crazy high intelligence build, this thing could keep stacking to just ridiculous numbers. And again, as these boards are class specific and none of them are random, all these legendary powers are probably going to be very important for specific builds. Like we know there's boards for bleed builds for barbarians. There's most likely going to be a very important bleeding power on a board focused around that. Say for a necromancer, there could be a blood focused board, and there would most likely be a very strong power focused around blood that could enable some specific builds to exist. But that's not all, because there is one additional tile type called a socket. And these are going to be empty tiles that once you go select and unlock, you can socket a glyph into the socket. Now glyphs are obtainable items you're going to be farming out in the world, pretty similar to how you farm just any other gear pieces. And these sockets are generally going to be focused on buffing all other tiles within a certain range around that socket. And sockets are going to have different rarities. We know of magic and rare tiles, and then going through nightmare dungeons and other forms of content in the game, you're able to upgrade your glyphs, making them stronger and giving them a bigger radius. And as of right now, we know that there are small, medium, and large radiuses for these glyphs as you level them up. So as you level up a glyph more and more, the radius of other tiles it affects is increased. And we actually got shown the first in-game screenshot of a glyph in a socket, so we get to see some of those effects. So in this screenshot, we get to see the top half of this UI that's showing a bunch of different stats in green. Now, I'm assuming this is the specific increase in stats you're getting from the bonuses from the glyph. I don't think this is showing every stat or effect you're getting in range of this glyph. This is just the bonuses you're getting specifically from the glyph. So they're getting additional lightning resistance, additional crackling energy damage, and additional intelligence. Then an additional effect they're getting is you deal 10% increased damage for 4 seconds after casting a defensive skill. Now in the bottom half of this, we get to see the actual socketed glyph itself. And this glyph grants 50% bonus to all rare nodes within range. So this one is even more specified on only buffing rare nodes, but some of the other glyphs are just going to buff all nodes or tiles within range. So maybe if you had a different glyph, it would give you 25% bonus to just all tiles within range. So maybe you would be getting a lot more additional stats. And then on this glyph and on a lot of other glyphs, you're going to also have a bonus that requires you get to a certain stat threshold, just like rare tiles have themselves. So this one requires they have 25 dexterity purchased within range of this glyph. So this one is even a little bit more specified that you don't just need 25 dexterity in your build, you need 25 dexterity in range of this glyph. And once they get that, they get the effect we went over where they get more damage after using a defensive skill. So not only is this glyph and socket system going to add a ridiculous amount of variation and customization in the boards themselves, but this is also going to add more progression just into gearing, because glyphs are an item that you loot like other items, and you're going to have to upgrade them by doing nightmare dungeons to make them even stronger. So there's even going to be outside gearing progression tied into the Paragon boards that are also going to have stat threshold requirements to even get all the power out of the glyphs themselves. So these Paragon boards are going to end up being very complex, and I think a lot more complex than people are giving it credit for. And even though this is a very complex system, you're still able to respec your Paragon boards either one tile at a time, or you'll most likely be able to respec whole boards with one click as well. And we know that at max level, so level 100, respecing a single tile is going to be around 50,000 gold, meaning it's going to be a little over 11 million gold to fully respec the entirety of your Paragon board system on that character, all 220 points. And this may sound like a lot of gold, but at level 100 and with a lot of the objectives that you can go and do to specifically farm gold, I don't think this is going to take near as long as people think it will. And I think 11 million gold to fully respec all this probably isn't going to be that big of a cost once you're at max level. And like I mentioned, every different class is going to have their own specific unique Paragon boards, and it's seeming like on launch every class is going to have 8 different selections of unique Paragon boards past the first board. Since you don't get to choose that first board, it's not part of a selection list, but it seems like past that first one, every class is going to have 8 different Paragon board options. But we know that every new season is also going to add more Paragon boards for every single class. And by this, I would probably expect one Paragon board for every class with every new season, maybe somewhat themed around a new seasonal system or something like that. So there's going to be a lot of options on launch, and we're going to be continually getting new boards to give a lot more options with every new season. But that's pretty much all I want to go over for Paragon boards, so thanks for watching.